Hi and welcome to episode 4 of 2018. Today is going to be a special episode for us. We've got Marco back.
I'm back.
Yay! Welcome back, Marco. But we're also going to have joining us Chris Painter, the CEO of Omnitude. I'll be pretty open with our listeners today. I am an advisor at Omnitude. They're doing some stuff with blockchain. I don't want to spoil it, and I'll let Marco and Vitor kind of lead the questions to Chris. Please try not to ruin Chris. I would really appreciate it, guys. He's our first guest on this podcast, so please try not to ruin him. Okay?
Right? We did talk to him about that.
You can try and ask him to pay you in tokens for Omnitude, but I'm not sure how it works. I'm gonna bring him over.
We're good, guys.
Let's see if he picks up.
So while we wait for Chris, how are you guys doing?
Yo, we're doing good. I think Chris just joined. Chris, you there? All right. Are you putting a shirt on so you can turn on your camera?
It just works, right?
Earpods. Good. So Chris, this works pretty simple, right? We will ask you some questions and you'll answer them. I've told our listeners that I will restrain from asking questions today, as I do have a connection with Omnitude as an advisor. But let me introduce you to Vitor and Marco. We'll be asking the questions today. Vitor and Marco, do you guys just want to do a quick introduction of yourself to Chris?
I'll let Vitor go first.
Marco, you can start.
Vitor?
Okay, it's on my side. So I'm the CTO of Binary Edge, the cybersecurity data company in Switzerland. Techie for, forever, and also learning about business doing the MBA in real life without doing an MBA. So that's basically a good description, I think.
Vitor?
Yeah, I'm Vitor Domingos. I'm the only guy that actually has a job in this kind of podcast.
Thank you very much.
I work I'm a senior manager at Unisys, so one of the old kind of school companies here in the UK, and I'm kind of helping Tiago doing this kind of podcasts.
Well, you're the old school.
All right.
Exactly.
Okay, so I've met Chris a few years ago, just to give our listeners a little bit of an intro. He was a sysadmin for one of the games I used to play. And, we used to talk in game and all of that. And at some point when I turned 18, I decided I would move to the UK. But I didn't know anyone in the UK. So the only people I knew in the UK was online from this game called Ultima Online. It was Chris and another guy called James. And essentially I moved to the UK and I, kind of arranged the weekend of partying with James and Chris. And that's how I met them in real life. And this was, 10 years ago? Yeah. So we've known each other for a while now. Yeah, long time. Not a life. So, Chris, I've asked Marco and Vitor to put together a couple of questions to ask you. And the first one is, can you tell us a little bit about Omnitude?
To really simplify it, Omnitude's a blockchain integration layer. It's designed to make it easy to push, pull, translate, and merge data between enterprise systems, such as ERP and WMS, e-commerce platforms, and more importantly, other blockchain technologies. We aim to make it easy to rapidly deploy these technologies, but more importantly to use these data flows in new ways as Omnitude's apps from both ourselves and by opening the platform to the community to build their own.
Omnitude has then got some kind of premium apps that we want to build ourselves, as well as kind of opening it up to everyone. We want to build this ecosystem that anyone can go in there and start building apps using this technology, but there's some that we want to do that kind of hopefully go some way to fix challenges like supply chain issues. One interesting thing we want to do is single sign-on across anything connected to the Omnitude cloud, which I think's a really powerful thing, amongst some other stuff that we go into on the website.
Chris, but why using blockchain for that, right? Because they're pretty much what you described. There are already solutions for that. Pretty much everything, right?
So there are solutions that do that. They cost significant amounts of money. They take a very long time to deploy, and it's in quite a cornered market. The ability to do that in blockchain is, we're not looking at the things that we're doing now. It's not just data flows. It's an entire ecosystem for apps. That the blockchain part of that, I see blockchain being a major driver of technology and a major kind of requirement in a lot of development going forward. So I think it's important for us to have transparency and immutability throughout the ecosystem.
And e-commerce has been something you've done for quite a few years, right? So can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background in e-commerce?
Yeah, so I'm a self-taught developer. Well, I used to be a self-taught developer, designer, everything. I grew my current agency pixel by pixel from just me to, at the highest point, 23 staff over the past 12 years. We've got a lot of our stuff is unfortunately behind NDAs, but we've got quite a few different brand name clients. We're also the e-commerce kind of agency of record for two of the biggest companies in the world. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to say who.
Of course.
But yeah, so in terms of, I guess, credibility of us, kind of through systems we've built, it does, I think the current last count was something like £96 million worth of transactions every year, excluding some of the bigger enterprise ones that we're not allowed to track, just in terms of ones we're directly responsible for.
Okay. So, Chris, just one question. So, one of the big things on Omnitude, like you mentioned, is you have the blockchain. And now, because of your e-commerce experience, you just mentioned about the volume of transactions you have to deal with. So one of the biggest talk points nowadays regarding blockchain is really the speed of the transactions. So if we look at, for example, Bitcoin, there are around 200,000 transactions in the backlog, and it's only doing around 5, 6, 7 transactions per second. We're looking at Ethereum, okay, much faster than Bitcoin, but still not enough speed for what we would consider real-time payments nowadays. Comparing to, for example, Visa or MasterCard, one of the two biggest payment providers in the world, the amount of millions of transactions they do per hour, per minute, it's insane. And the blockchain, as we know it nowadays, or the mainstream ones, they can't get near that. So how do you propose, like, what does Omnitude do to deal with this problem? Why? Because one of the things I noticed about Omnitude is you also want to be part of the transactions, be part of the payments. So how will this affect you, or how will you deal with this real-time payment issue?
Sorry, excuse me. Omnitude, we've kind of, after a lot of thoughts around this, seeing CryptoKitties come and go, we've
oh, that's so sad.
Early on in our design, we decided to use Hyperledger Fabric, which gives us a lot more control. It prevents miners and nodes putting any kind of restrictions on us. We can grow our own network as when we choose. We still want public participation in that, the ability for companies and individuals to run nodes. But Hyperledger Fabric, which we intend to use anyways, the aim is to achieve 100,000 transactions per second, which, you know, for us,
that's a good number.
That should definitely do us for the next year or two. And, you know, obviously from that, we can keep scaling.
Okay. Yeah, because I do ask this because Square or Stripe, I keep mixing them. They're one of the biggest payment providers now, growing well in a startup brand, and they used to take Bitcoins as a payment form, and now they cancelled it because those payments were taking just too long. So if you want to do e-commerce, and if you have payment providers saying, one of the major, it's not a cryptocurrency. That's Bitcoins is something weird at the moment. But yeah, if you can't take it because it takes too long, so there's just kind of that problem.
That goes for everything at the moment. I think as a society, we've become impatient over everything. and a few seconds even for a transaction is not long enough. We can barely wait a day for a parcel these days. So for me, to drive the adoption of a system, everything needs to be instant.
Mhm.
I had the pain of waiting 2 days for a ETH transaction to go through. It's just not acceptable for that. And I think that, people creating crypto projects at the moment need to bear that in mind.
Yeah.
That for the long-term adoption, speed's going to be everything.
Yeah, and
You just mentioned people creating crypto projects. One of the questions I'd like to ask you is not specifically about Omnitude, but rather about the project itself. What issues have you seen about the token selling process, getting the team together? What kind of support did you get? From whom did you get? How has that process been? Because you've been at that process for a few months now, right? Writing the white paper, all of it.
Yeah, we've been in it. I think it's been about 8 months in total since initial idea to, as I'm sure you're aware, you have an idea, you kind of sit on it for 6 weeks, and it chews around, and then find it's actually this might have something. And then to that point, it's only recently we've really started hiring. A lot of the work in the white paper was from me. Someone's phone. A lot of the work in the white paper was from me. We've then, one of the first hires we had was the blockchain architect. Then onto that, we've gone on to kind of marketing. We've been quite lucky to kind of bump into and find quite talented people that have come aboard. They've read the white paper, believed in the project, and offered their services. And as we've gone further and further, we're starting to attract people that I think there's a general drive now that people kind of find a project they love and then go to work for it. They want to work for it. Sorry.
Okay. Looking at Omnitude, one of the things that you want to achieve is bring this kind of blockchain to the supply chain, e-commerce supply chain, and probably connect that to possibly RRPs. How do you see that playing in the future, right? Because when you look at big commerce companies, they pretty much use SAP or any kind of those old legacy RP systems. How do you plan? Do you have any kind of vision to integrate things into that, or you just you want to build a platform and then wait for them to come?
Well, one of the things that I think we're going to see, especially over the next year or two, is more and more desire as consumers to see every bit of data about the transaction that we're doing, which you already kind of greater visibility and ownership of that data. So when you order a product, you can see the entire history of it, when it came, what its route to market was from you. You can then guarantee kind of the heritage of that product, where it's come from, whether it's been, for example, returned and reissued into stock, whether a supplier has actually genuinely got that into stock, generally got it in stock. We've all had that experience where we've ordered something on next day delivery and 5-10 days later it actually turns up. So part of that is, kind of credibility of maybe smaller suppliers. I could see in terms of, you can build a lot of trust if you can prove that you've got the product and prove the heritage and it's there in stock, and your price is then in escrow as well. Then there's a lot more rise for smaller retailers. One of the reasons that a lot of people say, for example, use Amazon is trust. If you can build that kind of transparency of supply chain, proof of the product, and escrow around delivery and so on as one package, then I think people will make that move to smaller retailers. The other part around it, obviously, you said people use SAP. That's only available for the very, very large retailers. We hope to bring that kind of power to smaller retailers and enable them to start competing on a certain level, and maybe kind of, again, almost the wrong words, decentralized, but kind of make that market a bit more fragmented and not in the power of, retail is moving more and more towards maybe 2 or 3 different companies, and that's it.
And don't you think that the market is, because I did a bit of research, and I'm just looking at the blockchain project ecosystem for supply chain logistics and provenance, and there's a bunch of companies right now that provide this kind of service. How do you compare yourself against the other ones that are either already operating in this sector or they're just starting as yourself? Is there any kind of thing that actually differentiate you from the others?
So, the goal of our project isn't to do supply chain. We're building Omnitude as this app ecosystem that lets us do these data flows, and then we're building some kind of almost example apps where we think we can add value, and they also then become quite good demonstrations of what the system can achieve. So, although yes, we are using a lot of our experience in supply chain, we work for quite a few supply chain companies, and we think we've got a lot to add there in value. These are going to be the starting point, and we're there to kind of push. Sorry, I've lost the words. People are messaging me. We're there to kind of push all of the devs and the agencies we want to work with to build their own apps, and we want to integrate with those other supply chain apps so that people can start doing more interesting things as layers on top of that technology. We're not going and locking out and going, that's our supply chain, that's the only supply chain part we're going in. We're doing that as a documented app within it to show what we think is possible in supply chain, but also lead as an example to others, and for people to take that technology further and perhaps adapt it or adjust it or even use it as the basis of their project.
Chris, in these episodes where we interview startups, we usually try to allocate 15 minutes to it. So I'll give you the last question. A lot has been happening on the news in terms of, ICOs going wrong, or tokens being stolen, or people running away with the ICO money. So the question I want to ask you is, what are you guys at Omnitude doing to prove you're legit, to show the transparency to people that this is not a project, that's going to disappear from one day to the other? And in combination with that question, has all the crisis that has been happening in the ICO ecosystem been affecting you guys or not?
So I think there's multiple parts to that. I think one of the problems with things like money being stolen from ICOs is there's quite a lot of not the ideal word to use, but naive people that have managed to run ICOs. And so, we're not many ICOs are coming out of existing companies. So I think that instantly kind of legitimizes us a bit. It's not our first rodeo, that's for sure. We've obviously had to do a lot of work around security of data and so on in e-commerce. We're not going to go clicking links that we get for the Nigerian lottery. So there's that part of it, and there's a lot of people that still do quite naive actions around data security. I think in terms of us running away with the tokens, all of our tokens are vested. We're also, being an English company, we're going to be audited every year so people can see where we're spending our funds. That'll be an independent accountant's audit, which will be published for the community to see where that money's been spent.
Yeah, and that data should be available in Company House, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a bit different,
Okay.
I guess. With that being under UK company law, there's a lot more restrictions on us. What we've got to do, as directors, it's a criminal offence for us to work against the interests of the company. I quite like not being in prison. So,
I think that's quite useful.
That's for me. It's a project I really want to succeed. I've worked very hard over the last 8 months on this. It solves a major problem that we've dealt with for the past 5-6 years doing this, and I'm really excited to see it succeed.
Okay.
And I think all of us agree that we would very much like to watch it succeed, and we look forward to celebrating the Omnitude token sale, hopefully in a couple of days.
Yeah, we're doing
Can you give us a
the
date?
pre-sale is going on Tuesday. We've got the whitelist still open for a bit, but we're quite oversubscribed on that, and then the main token sale is in February.
Okay.
Just before you go, I'll just like to ask one last question.
I have two.
What
I
is
have
the
two
craziest?
questions as well.
Oh man.
You do? Okay, you go first then, because mine is a really basic question, and it will go at the end. But go on, Vitor,
mine,
do yours.
it hasn't anything to do with Omnitude. I think that we should stop there with your last pitch. My two questions is, you said that you have a UK company. It's going to be regulated. I'm looking at also the UK market. Do you see any kind of regulation regarding blockchain for the UK soon? And secondly, what do you think about Kodak doing their kind of blockchain mining and stuff for photographers?
I've been away at an event in London for the past couple of days, so I've seen a lot of people have sent me things about Kodak, so I haven't had a chance to catch up on that yet. I only actually arrived back about an hour ago. Sorry, can you repeat the other part? I think regulation is important. I think, especially considering the B word that no one likes to say, I think England will probably take quite a soft stance on crypto in terms of, I think the United Kingdom, I should say, want to kind of, they have always actually kind of promoted entrepreneurship, want to promote business. With our departure from our European cousins coming up, I think it's quite important that the UK will be promoting business wherever possible. So I don't see them doing a big crackdown. I think regulation kind of, as long kind of the company law in the UK, I think is quite strict anyway. So I don't see there much demand for regulation. The same as for me as well. I'm not a legal advisor by any means, but I think the kind of investment regulation is quite loose anyway in the UK, from what I understand. So, but I think it covers already kind of a lot of the stuff that I'd see around that.
Okay. Great. So my last question, and we'll let you go get your rest during this weekend. Thank you very much, for starters, for taking the time to talk to us. My question is, what's the craziest thing that has happened to you in this process of the ICO thing? What's been the craziest offer you've gotten, or the weirdest thing that has happened? No need to name names, but just tell us something that you found out of the ordinary that happened to you.
We had someone offer quite well. I've got two actually. We had one person wanted to buy $5 million worth of tokens and proved that they could, which it's a quarter, 20% of our tokens they wanted to buy. Seriously, they're currently considering just joining the ICO on a lesser amount, because I said that's not really fair. We want a nice even spread. And then the second one is someone wanted me to go get 500,000 euros in cash to buy tokens. And
the what?
My thoughts behind that was that I'd end up in a suitcase.
with the money or without? That's an important question you should have asked.
Okay. I would say that there are many questions around.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess you reply.
Based on the legal
no.
stuff, let's just keep it like that.
I'm just gonna assume, Chris, that you replied. You need to go through our KYC AML process before I can accept that, right?
Unfortunately, they declined when I mentioned that we'd need to do KYC, and we could do the transaction within the confines of a UK bank. They weren't too keen on that.
It's just a shame that it's not Brazil. You could just do that in Brazil, no problem.
Chris, thank you very, very much for taking the time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. Go get some rest and have a nice weekend.
Cheers.
And good luck with Omnitude.
Thanks. Bye-bye. All right. So that was Chris Painter, CEO of Omnitude. You guys can check their website at omnitude.tech. As Chris mentioned, they're now starting the process of pre-sales and all of that. So Mark and Vitor, what did you guys think? It's funny. Someone on Twitter actually mentioned this week that what was it that he said? He said that we're too skeptical about blockchains on this podcast. That the three of us are too skeptical. He used the Portuguese expression for that. He called us velhos do Restelo. But essentially, he said that we are too skeptical and that we should be more open about
this is my
blockchains
opinion
and
on
all of
blockchain.
that.
So far, I'm still waiting for a good example on its use cases. Most of the examples I've seen, they don't deal with the real world problems. Being that payments, so far they've been slow as hell. They don't resolve anything in payments. Payments have been something that the industry, like Vitor has the experience on a more corporate side, has had that experience for years. Decentralization, I think that's a bit of a utopic world. If there's no one backing it up, I don't really believe that we're going to see a big deployment of blockchain that's decentralized, that's used in a mass consumption wise. And no, blockchain, Bitcoin is not a mass consumption. It's a niche of the market, less than the 1% of the population that uses it. So it's not really a mass product. Okay, some people know about it. Elections, the same. It blockchain doesn't fix problems in elections. So I'm still waiting to see a concrete example to it where we can fix it. A lot of people talk about it, but don't really think about that. I see blockchain when we need trust as an important thing. We need trust on the data. So a lot of stuff that people suggest, just use a ledger. That's what you want. It's a ledger. It's a technology known from the 80s. It works, and that's what you need. But of course, nowadays, if you want trust because you don't trust the environment where you are, okay, maybe the cryptography features of the blockchain can help you on that. I'm not really skeptic. I'm more skeptic about all the projects that we've been seeing so far. I'm waiting for a project that comes out where it shows that, okay, this is the real potential for the blockchain that we can see. I'm not going to jump the wagon like, oh my god, this is the blockchain like we see most Silicon Valley do. This is the best technology, and like last year the technology was bots, chatbots, then it was AI, now it's the blockchain, and then we're going back to AI again. So the technology goes, it keeps growing. Currently the blockchain, as we've seen it, still going to change a lot. I think it will have an impact in the future in some industries, not every single industry in the world. Like the technologies we have for 100 years, it doesn't affect in every single industry in the world. So I think we have to be pragmatic about the technology. It's not the best thing in the world. We are skeptic about it because of the current projects. They don't work. So I'm sorry about it, but yes. Once you show me something that's good,
Vitor, you've got your skeptical face on.
No, it's not. I think it's. I don't think it's that. So I think that we should split two things here. The first one is blockchain. The second one is Bitcoin. So the money part of the equation. The other one is how we authenticate things, right? How you make sure that things are real and they are signed and they belong to someone. Stuff like that. Looking at the part of the money, all of those Bitcoin currencies and forks that people are doing out there and whatnot, I do believe that we need some kind of currency to compete with the dollar. I'm not sure if these cryptocurrencies are going to be that kind of currency that will compete and we will be using globally as just one coin for us to start trading and doing stuff. I see Bitcoin has a huge advance against the other ones, but to be honest, I don't see the league, some country or some kind of bank supporting that from a legal point of view. On the other hand, I see banks probably using blockchain internally for their own projects, for their own stuff. I see that as part of the architecture that they're going to do in the future to make sure that transactions are real, are signed, But transposing that to the real world, I think it's really complicated because when you talk about blockchain, the most common use case that people use is, well, let's do smart contracts because that's really cool and people will understand that. But when we transpose that into the real world, actually, it's not going to work because for us to have a contract, it's not something that you and I sign. It needs to be legally bound to something, right? It needs to
The
comply
lawyers,
with
that's
a
the difficult
specific-
part.
Exactly. It needs to comply with a specific law. It has some kind of format. It has some kind of text. That test is already approved. It's already proven on court. So it's really complicated to do smart contracts in this kind of way. So bottom line, and on top of that, let's add all of the news that people are losing wallets, Ponzi schemes, ICOs. So there's a lot of vaporware. There's a lot of bad press around it. So I'll probably just wait a couple of years to see a real use case. I can see banks using blockchain in the future for their own purpose. That's cool. I don't see probably you and I doing this every single day.
Yeah.
So it's going to be case by case.
Yeah, I think banks will start using blockchain more and more, and insurance companies, I see them using this more and more, but also because of the trust issue. Some industries will gain from this, but I don't think it's going to be some. So the next 5 years, I don't see this being something common for the normal user. But it might be a backbone in some industries, but that's still going to take some
I
time.
will see about that.
What about you, Tiago?
Yeah. So for me, I agree with the person that commented that, maybe for myself that I've been a bit skeptical about the blockchain ecosystem and all of that. It's also why, when Chris invited me to be an advisor, I decided to accept. I needed to understand what the product was, but I knew the team, and I know the team behind it is strong. And I thought, if I'm going to learn about, because up until this point, I've criticized the blockchain ecosystem as an outsider. So I thought, I saw this as an opportunity for me to actually jump in. And I'm seeing the hurdles that the team is going through. We've got our Telegram channels, we've got our emails that we trade between each other as a group. And I'm learning a lot, and I see that at least specifically for these guys, they're working really hard. So I'm not going to comment on the product itself. I don't have enough expertise in e-commerce. I'm an advisor in terms of cybersecurity. But I'm finding it really interesting because it's really a different set of challenges. Going from understanding this thing of doing bounties to try and get followers, to try and get translations, there is a lot of work. If people believe that doing a proper ICO, the way these guys are doing, that's supposed to be, I think, 30 million or something like that, is just setting up a website and getting some people to sign up. It's not.
If you want to do
I'm
it
telling
properly,
you, it's not. There is a lot of work behind it, like vetting the white paper, vetting every single media publication, all of those things. It's not easy.
Actually, one of the things I did enjoy. Sorry,
I would
one of the things
say
I did enjoy actually by
yeah?
Omnitude, comparing to other ICOs that we've seen, is they have a technical and non-technical white paper that are quite easy to read. And usually, I remember reading some ICO white papers, and by page 2 already, I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Isn't there the simplified version that without all the number blah blah of the technical stuff, or just bullshit from business side? So, and that was something I did enjoy about the guys from Omni. I think they're doing a good job on that side. So I'm intrigued to see what they can do.
Yeah. You actually have a website that ranks ICOs, and they did extremely well. There's a website that aggregates, I can't remember what the name is now, I'll make sure it goes in the description, that aggregates all the ICOs and ranks them. And the guys from Omnitude did really, really well, because you need to go through certain factors to get a higher rank, like have a certain amount of advisors, have a really good technical paper, and these guys evaluate the paper and everything, and it did extremely well. So I'm really excited. I'm finding it quite interesting and learning a lot. So just moving on to a different topic now. Google in Portugal. What do you guys think about that?
Oh man,
Vitor. And Amazon in
Let's-
Porto.
let's-
And Amazon.
and
in
let's
Porto.
Amazon, they're
play
thinking
the-
about it. They are still thinking about it. Not approved yet. If
Let's not be those old guys from the Muppets show
but you are.
that keep complaining about pretty much everything. But to be honest with you, I think I'm gonna go with Mike Butcher that says that it's gonna be pretty much a call center. It's still 500 jobs, perfect. If Amazon goes to Porto, even better. I think that the location in near Lisbon, it's a terrible location. Well, it's between Lisbon and Sintra, so
It's yeah.
it's really bad. But that's not me to judge. Either way, they're gonna increase an office. They're gonna hire people. If it's gonna be qualified or high qualified, we'll definitely know in a couple of months or years to know. Right now, it's completely complicated for us, or at least for me to have an opinion about that. Great for Portugal, but I don't see that as a great technology hub for Europe or Africa. But that's me.
If the call center rumors are true, then yeah, okay, it's a good starting point. It's an entry point for Google in Portugal. It's a starting point for the Portuguese-speaking countries for Google, because they get in Portugal. We have a good relationship with those countries, well, for reasons. So it's a good entry point for Google to understand better those countries, those economies, and what people need AdSense-wise. But from there, it's actually it's quite good. Sort of good with the place where they're going to be, because they have a good university 5 minutes away, Instituto Superior Técnico, and where they have some of the best engineering degrees in the country. So they can get engineering students if they want to, but that depends if they decide to go that road. And I'm from my circles, some people are telling me it's just going to be a call center. Some people are telling me no, there will be engineering there, there will be high value jobs there, so high skilled jobs. So I'm still waiting to see what in reality it's going to be. But the bottom line is that I think it's going to be good. It's good for the country. It's on the news. People are talking about it. So
Yeah. I mean, I think it makes sense. For a while, I've been saying that I believe Portugal to be one of the best countries right now in terms of getting accessible priced engineering staff. If you compare it to India or usually Ukraine and all of that, you always hear, your typical problems of communication, integration, all of that. And I don't think those problems will happen, with engineering from Portugal, or will happen, but at a more reduced level. At same time, if it's a call center, it's a win-win situation, because Google has shit support lines, so at least now they're gonna have proper call support. So either way, it's a win for the people that actually rely on Android and the Google ecosystem. Yeah.
Oh well.
I mean,
let's see.
let's
To
wait
be
and
honest
see.
with you, it's really good to have these companies betting in Portugal. That's for sure. The other thing is telling that these companies are going to create and are going to employ high skill jobs and high skill employees there. That's going to be hard to know and hard to tell. So we need to give some time. The other thing that we need to think about is, we all left Portugal for a reason, right? And it's probably between us. It's not going to be Google opening an office in Portugal that will make us return to Portugal to start working there again. But that's me.
I'm not sure about that. So for me, I think I'm one of the few people that says this, but I'm actually okay with the taxes in Portugal. I'm okay with, how things are there, as long as I can have a good enough salary. But I know not everyone agrees with this. And if Google is able to offer, say, 4K a month gross, I think you'll see a lot of people going back. Because lots of the people that leave, it's because they're getting shit salaries. Portugal is great in terms of food, in terms of weather, in terms
Quality
of
of
things
life
to
is
do
quite
in
cheap.
Lisbon. Quality of life is Exactly. It's cheap. So if you can get a good salary, and I don't see why Google wouldn't offer that, because if they can get a good engineer in Portugal, it's gonna cost them less than half than what they would pay here in Switzerland, in the US, and even in London. London's freaking expensive. And I say this as a person living in Switzerland. Seriously, guys, get your prices under control. Things are more expensive there than here.
They're not.
In terms of rent, we've had this conversation before. I'm not going down this road again with you guys.
But salaries in Portugal are increasing quite, like very fastly in the last 2-3 years. A lot of UK companies are investing in Portugal for engineering jobs, and we see like the market is being completely taken over by those companies. I know Sky's there. I think Aeronex is there, and they have a lot of big startups growing now, like Talkdesk and Unibabble. So they are hiring a ton of people. So the market is starting to feel it.
Yeah, feeds
and the salaries
all
are
of them.
increasing because of that.
Yeah.
So now put more players like Amazon as Google that they have the pockets to pay, and they don't mind paying to get the people they want. Salaries will start increasing.
And I think that is the one problem. When people ask me, are you happy about going to Portugal? I am very happy. I just think it's actually going to screw up our startup ecosystem, because it's the problem Switzerland has. Mm-hmm. Startups here can't hire people because they're competing with salary levels of Googles, of Facebooks, of the big companies here as well. So I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen.
Remember what I told you like 2 months ago when the iPhone X came out? I was talking to some guys in Portugal, and their opinion was, well, you work for a startup, so that shouldn't be a problem for you to do. Why don't you just buy an iPhone X? And I was looking at him like, you realize this is £1,000, right? And they were like, yeah, so you work in a startup, you should have money to buy one. It's like, what do you guys think a startup is?
The concept of startup and the entire startup ecosystem is completely screwed. But that's a discussion for another day, guys. Again, to our listeners, thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe, share, let us know what you thought of the episode. I would like to do a plug. All of us and one friend of ours called Basilio, we have an Alexa skill called Tech Shot Coffee. Vitor, help me out.
You should know that because you're doing this week of Tech Coffee. Remember?
Essentially, you get every morning a new set of news read to you by one of us. It's maximum of 2 minutes, and you get your tech update every morning on your Alexa. Please install it, try it out, give us some feedback. It's really appreciated that you guys give us some feedback.
I'm not sure.
Fine, Alexa, if you're not sure. Jesus. And that's it. Guys, thank you very much, and I'm very happy to have you as my co-host. It's been great hosting the podcast this year with you guys, and see you all next week.
Cheers. Have a good one.